She exposed the recklessness of U.S. foreign threats, calling out how a single Truth Social post nearly ignited chaos in Nigeria, without strategy, oversight, or consent. Behind the tough talk was a dangerous playbook, and today, she tore it apart in front of Congress.
You in front of us, in front of the committee, I just want to quickly talk about Sudan, because I do think this is so critical, and the humanitarian situation there, the incredible numbers. 400,000 killed, over 11 million displaced, 30 million in need of humanitarian aid. This is just a stunning crisis, and I did want to appreciate the administration's recent comments on this, particularly Secretary Rubio, when he called for action to cut off the supply of weapons to the Rapid Support Forces. And as the Secretary had previously acknowledged, it has been widely documented that the UAE has been one of the primary drivers in fueling those weapons to the RSF. So I hope that I want to urge the administration to use every piece of leverage that we have to halt that support. And I hope, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your leadership and for the ranking member's leadership on this issue. I hope that we can take up the bill from Representative Meeks and Representative Jacobs. I know it was on our agenda, but I think it's important for us to take up that bill at the earliest opportunity, because this is a moment for us, I think, to all focus on the horrific crisis there. So just want to urge you to do everything you can, and we are spending a lot of time on this issue. I have a lot of constituents who are directly impacted by this in the Sudanese diaspora. So thank you for that. The devastating levels of violence in Nigeria are clear, but I appreciate that people have also recognized it isn't just the persecution of Christians. This is persecution of multiple groups, and I think we have to be careful not to portray it just as persecution of Christians. That feels to me simplistic, and it doesn't account for the intersectional diversity of Nigeria. Certainly religion is a contributing factor to the violence, but a review by the Search for Common Ground found that in Nigeria's Middle Belt region, religion was not a primary driver of conflict. Instead, violence has been directed against both Christians and Muslims, regardless of religion, at the hands of armed terror groups like Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa, or fueled by differences in lifestyle between farmer and herder groups compounded by climate change and governance issues. And so I want to start by saying I'm very concerned that a day after President Trump saw a clip on Fox News about the persecution of Christians in Nigeria, he threatened to go, quote, guns ablazing in Nigeria and revoke all assistance. That would include all global health funding, despite Nigeria accounting for over a quarter of annual malaria deaths a year, and being home to the world's third largest population living with HIV. These are all issues I worked on in Africa long before coming to Congress. In response, the Nigerian government criticized any action that would violate Nigeria's sovereignty and territorial integrity. I know, Ambassador Pratt, that you've spoken about some agreements, some conversations and a task force with the Nigerian government, but can you tell me under what authority would the U.S. military strike inside of Nigeria?
Well, the Secretary of State, and thank you for the question, Congresswoman. The Secretary of State has directed us to put together a comprehensive plan that uses all tools at our disposal, including security and Department of War. And this would be primarily focused on the security that we are providing to the government of Nigeria and how they are deploying their assets. We can also share information and intelligence. We can talk about counterterrorism. And so those are the tools that we are primarily looking at in our strategy.
Don't you think it would have been appropriate to have the task force discussion and the alternatives presented prior to the president going on Truth Social and saying we're going to go guns a-blazing into Nigeria?
We've been working on these problem sets in Nigeria for a long time. We have a lot of programs of assistance in the country. They did undergo a foreign assistance review, but many of them continue, and we want to make sure that we're using them strategically to get the best outcomes.
Very diplomatically said, Ambassador. I just wish we would actually stick to that playbook rather than a bully and threaten of a country that is extremely important to us and to the region, I don't think that's the right way to go, to just go on Truth Social and threaten guns ablazing. I think what you've described is much more appropriate, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of that. You know, we had Ambassador Kelly Curry here before a different subcommittee of this committee, former Trump appointee, and she said in front of the committee in a hearing yesterday, I think it's a very relevant quote, "You cannot solve problems created by men with guns by turning to men with guns for this solution." And I just would urge us to think about that. This is coming from a former Trump appointee. I think if we were to do this, it would just serve to further radicalize communities and risk turning the aggression of actors like Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa directly to the United States. I just have 50...
Gentlelady has expired.
Oh, it's expired. I'm so sorry. I thought I had 50 seconds left. Thank you for your indulgence. I yield back.
Watch the moment it unraveled. What you just witnessed was a rare moment of moral clarity in Congress, a calm but crushing takedown of performative foreign policy and the dangerous consequences of Twitter-fueled war talk. The Congresswoman didn't just question the administration's threat to go guns ablazing into Nigeria, she exposed it for what it was: reckless, unstable, and deeply disconnected from the very people it claims to protect. In a few measured words, she painted a devastating picture: 400,000 dead in Sudan, over 11 million displaced, and yet somehow, in the middle of these complex crises, the president saw a single Fox News clip and threatened military action. No strategy, no diplomacy, no coordination, just a Truth Social post with global consequences. And when she asked whether the administration even had the authority to launch such strikes, the ambassador's response was telling: vague, diplomatic, evasive. The tools they mentioned were security support, intelligence, and task forces. But none of that matched the president's rhetoric, which skipped past policy and went straight to saber rattling. She brought facts: malaria deaths, HIV rates, destabilization risks, and she reminded us that blanket threats do more than stir headlines. They radicalize entire regions, invite retaliation, and damage fragile alliances. She didn't just push back on the message, she questioned the mindset behind it, and in doing so, she flipped the power imbalance. A lone member of Congress holding the executive branch accountable for using social media like a joystick for foreign intervention. Let's be clear, this wasn't about being soft on terror. It was about being smart. It was about preventing American policy from becoming a meme with missiles. Ask yourself, what kind of leadership bypasses its own advisors to post threats online? What kind of strategy ignores humanitarian aid, sovereignty, and regional complexity just to look tough in the headlines? And who pays the price when policy is replaced with provocation? The answer is always the same: innocent civilians, vulnerable communities, and Americans caught in the backlash. She quoted a former Trump appointee who said it best: "You cannot solve problems created by men with guns by turning to men with guns." That wasn't just a line. It was a truth bomb dropped right on top of this administration's hypocrisy. And in a room filled with protocol and politeness, she showed what accountability actually looks like. She didn't just challenge the ambassador, she challenged the entire machine that lets impulsive threats pass for policy. And in doing so, she reminded us that institutions will always protect themselves until someone forces the conversation they want to avoid. This moment matters because when we threaten military action without a plan, we don't look strong, we look unstable. And when we let it slide, we normalize chaos. If you believe no one is above the Constitution, if you believe foreign policy should be made in the Situation Room, not on a social feed, then share this video, subscribe for more unfiltered truth, and stay loud. Because when silence is the default, recklessness becomes routine. And the only way to stop it is to call it out, exactly like she just did. She exposed the recklessness of U.S. foreign threats, calling out how a single Truth Social post nearly ignited chaos in Nigeria, without strategy, oversight, or consent. Behind the tough talk was a dangerous playbook, and today, she tore it apart in front of Congress. Watch the moment it unraveled.